What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode here from my own studio here in Burke, Virginia. Welcome back to the Adam Hazara Show today, here on a good sunny Monday, here on March 24th, 2025. Of course, as always, we got a lot of action to talk about here today on the show. Of course, the first week for Lake Braddock baseball and softball. What happened on both sides? We'll get to all those games, and we'll be from the first week of the spring season. And of course, we're going to be previewing this week's games as well. Pretty big week for both tomorrow, as they will be taking on West Springfield, two very big matchups, both taking on big rivals. Of course, I'll have a call for Lake Braddock baseball tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. on the Lake Braddock Student Broadcasting YouTube channel. Make sure you tune into that at that said time. And of course, softball also has a game on Wednesday at home when they host Hayfield, now district matchup with their Region 6C rival. So I'll be on the call for that game as well. First softball game of the season. Of course, 6:30, Lake Braddock Student Broadcasting channel as well. And of course, both baseball and softball will be wrapping up their seasons, or week, I should say, not seasons, just after the first week, versus Woodson on the road. So before we get into this one, make sure you guys, again, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, follow the show on X at Adam Hazara Show for more updates. Of course, turn notifications on for your show so you don't miss another episode coming up. And as always, share it with a friend so you can spread the word. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode of the Adam Hazara Show. So on today's episode, we are going to start off on the baseball side of things. A couple of interesting things came out of Lake Braddock baseball in the first week of the 2025 season. So, of course, they started their season on Tuesday. A thrilling 14-8 win at South County. We're going to get into that game first. So that game, of course, was pretty intense, especially all the way through. It was a tie game all the way through. I know South County led it early by a couple runs, and the Bruins came back, tied it. Weren't down much. Were able to fight with a much new lineup. First time seeing the lineup without Jamie Wiskowski, Pod Hall, Jake Drum, big free trio of guys. And they were able to do well, step up, and get the first win of the season. Of course, Leo DeLomo, the Bruins opening day starter, he struggled getting 5 runs in this earned in his first few innings of work. When the Bruins went to Jack Caballeros, or Jack Cav as I like to call him for short, and he pitched a brilliant last few innings of the game. Struck out quite a few batters, and I think only gave up 1 run and earned his first ever varsity win, I believe. Had about, of course, big offense from certain guys. I believe Braden Gibson, Matt Shabe had multiple hits. Of course, Evan George, who's now hitting the 2 spot for Bruins this season. A lot of changes in the line, of course, with Wiskowski, Drummond, Holgon. We'll get into that. He's now batting in a 2 spot this season. Showing more power. For a guy who's only 5'6". Guy has quite some bulk to him. Hit a home run out to left field, 3-run shot off Wyatt Osborne of South County. That was big in the game. I know in the Robinson game as well, which we'll get into, he actually made a pretty good throw to a plate from center field, also showing off his charm. He's got some tools for only being 5'6", especially in the power department. Of course, he's more known for his speed last year. More of a guy who was working some good at-bats at the bottom of the lineup, really stepping up this year. 2-spot Bruins like his speed. They see a lot in his power, of course, so shifting up, he's more pressure on him, but he's been handling it well as the first couple games so far. So his game tied going to the 7th inning, but for Bruins then were able to score 6 unanswered runs to then, I believe, or 6-7 unanswered runs in the 7th inning of that game to win it. In 7 innings, 14-8 for a good first win of the season. And of course, you get into the Robinson game, much more solid win over there. Of course, we saw Bo Padgett making his first varsity start of the season as the newfound Bruins ace. Great 5 innings of one-run ball. Struggled a little bit in the first, but then settled down after that. And he showed a lot of good stuff as to why he is probably going to be the Bruins ace, or at least one of their top pitchers going forward this year. So we have that. Big game, of course, from Henry Mons. Talk about a job he did stepping up for Matt Mayer, who is starting Bruins third baseman for a second straight season. Unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the season. His high school career is actually over as he tore his meniscus in the South County game. So unfortunately, he's out. Big power friend in Bruins line, but Henry Mons, who steps in, who's got some good looks as a junior. Another player in that great 2026 class. We'll also talk a little bit about coming up. He stepped up well, hitting a free spot. Actually, in the initial lineup release on X and Instagram by the Lake Braddock baseball pages, he was actually listed as hitting ninth. I think that was, of course, a way to kind of, they wanted to throw Robinson off in doing that. There are teams who will do that at times, and they seem to work out well. Mons, 3 RBIs that game, playing second base. Brayden Gibson moves from second over third base. Third base is probably a little worse position in terms of his defense, but the Bruins have faith in him there. So, it's kind of like what they have to do with Mayer out for the rest of the season. So they have that going on. And so, so again, a solid H3 win. Matt Shabe, again, another big game for him. He stepped up, another multi-hit game. He's been great, showing why he was second team All-District last year. Big expectations for him this year to really step up and being one of the big Bruins leaders, especially out of that a really big 2026 class that's going to be contributing a lot more this year. He's now hitting leadoff, moving here to shortstop after Jamie Waskowski is gone. Shabe plays a lot of clean defense over there. Just overall, a great glove. In a few appearances he got over at shortstop last year whenever Waskowski pitched, he was good. You kind of talk about some of the other defensive and offensive changes, positional wise. Offensively, you have Ryan Harding stepping up to around the 3-4 spot. Batted third in the South County game, batted fourth versus Robinson. Man, talk about a story that Ryan Harding has been moved up from JV last year. Again, I'll reiterate it just once again for you guys. Just talk about how impressive his story is. So, start his high school career last year on JV. Bruins left field was struggling. Had about 5 guys starting at the time, going into spring break. It was only a couple weeks in the season up to that point. They brought up Harding from JV up to varsity, and then he just started fitting in really well for the lineup, being a big contributor, especially for that bottom part. And he was started for the rest of the season. First year, was able to win a district and regional tournament, and was a first freshman starter for Bruins in about a few years. I mean, ever since Jamie Waskowski did maybe in 2021, as well as Pot Hall. I know got a few starts that year. We had 2021 region finals. He actually had Jamie Waskowski. So under Coach John Thomas for a year before T. Thompson became the head coach. He had, I think, starting like left field. You can play some outfield, especially with his range if you really want to put him there. But I think he's just best suited at shortstop, just in terms of his game. So it's a quick little interesting note there on that side. But Harding, now this season, talk about him batting 7th last season. Now up to hitting around 3rd or 4th, looked at to be a big run producer for this Bruins team. And talk about Bruins, such a great program they've been. 50 plus years, one of the most consistent baseball programs in all of Virginia for high school level. So many winning seasons, only 4 losing seasons in about those 50 years that I've been talking about. And so Harding, comes up, from JV, and he's only hitting 3rd or 4th his sophomore year. And, this is not just, above anyone in a great 2026 class for Bruins. I'll just give a quick rundown for depth. Matt Shabe, who's a great hitter. Evan George, we talked about, who's a great hitter. Brayden Gibson, Henry Mons, as we've been talking about. Bo Padgett, Bruins' new ace. He can hit as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys there. CJ Prentice, you want to throw in there with his 100-mile-an-hour velo that he has off the bat. You can throw him in there as well. We'll get in a little bit in his situation as well. But it looks like really Harding, you expect for the Bruins, you expect some guy who's, some D1 level guy who's a star, one of the best prospects in the state, is going to play for some really good college, really good coach, being that 3 and 4 spot, most Bruins years. Some guys, or not, some guys all met all state. That's not Ryan Harding. Now, I'm not saying he can't be D1, not saying he can't be, all state, all met. Very well could be in the next year or two. But, he's got some adjustments to make first, probably, starting out here, batting in the 3-4 spot here to start off his sophomore season. And he's quite a story. Just a guy coming up from JV last year, called up to varsity a couple weeks in, and then batting 7th next year. He's a varsity starter. Looks to be one of the best hitters for Lake Braddock. So that's really big in itself. So a big shout out there to Ryan Harding. A very, very interesting, not just unorthodox, but a great, interesting story coming out there. And then we also want to talk about something things also we've seen in the DH role. It seems like, whenever Bo Padgett was the starting DH opening day, and he, of course, pitched, he was actually not in the lineup that day. I think they just, the Bruins wanted him out of the lineup versus Robinson because they just wanted him to solely focus on pitching instead of worrying about both sides. Right now, I think they're trying to really get him more acclimated to being the ace pitcher of the Bruins as well. So they think they want to, kind of take it a little bit easier with him right now. But I think in this time, at least what you'll see is CJ Prentice probably hitting that DH spot when Bo is pitching. We talk about Prentice with his, great exit field. He has great power. One of the best, probably, when he's at his best, one of the best, could definitely be one of the best power hitting catchers in the state. But again, the thing with him is that, a lot of Bruins coaches are concerned about his, how much contact he can make. And the worry is that he's going to strike out a lot as well. But, like I said, on a baseball preview last weekend, if he could maybe hit like 240, 250, was kind of more of a regular in baseball these days across a lot of levels, driving a decent amount of runs, give you decent slugging, give you kind of the power numbers that you're looking for. He doesn't have to hit for the highest average as we've seen, maybe get on base at an okay amount. I think he could definitely be a solid contributor for Bruins. But again, I think that just goes into so much competition if there is in a 2026 class. They again, in the Bruins also like Evan Flowers, of course. Catcher was also another option. And I think the Bruins like Evan Chambers. I don't know why I keep thinking of Flowers. Evan Chambers, the new freshman catcher for the Bruins. He's been off to a really good start. Shown some great extra base power. Great at bats as well. Drawed quite a few walks in these first 2 games that I've seen. He's definitely going to be something special for this Bruins team. And let's talk about Evan Chambers and the difference between him and Prentice. Prentice, it's the second year in a program for Lake Braddock, knows the pitching staff a lot better, is in the same class with Padgett, Cavalario, a couple of those 2026 Bruins pitchers. And, he could have had him catch because he knows the pitching staff better. But actually, Chambers is coming in, and, that's a tall task for a catcher because you got to know how to work with your pitchers, a couple older and experienced pitchers, and just a catcher freshman just new to the program this year. And, Coach Diomson and his staff has huge trust in him working with Cavalario and Padgett and the rest of the Bruins pitchers in trusting the staff and working well with them, and has a lot of trust that he's going to win them a lot of games in that sense. So again, a lot of interesting stories for the Bruins. Again, I do want to go back to CJ Prentice for 1 second. Doesn't seem like he's the worst hitter. He's not trying to hit. The Bruins didn't place him 8th or 9th in that Robinson game. They had him batting 6th as the DH. And again, I think he's good a DH depth behind Bo Padgett. If you're going to use CJ, probably use him there if you're going to back him up. But I think CJ should at least get some playing time. He actually showed some great power, the opposite way. He almost hit one out versus Robinson on Friday. And again, I think, I think it would be a bit interesting to see if he got a full amount of playing time. But again, I think the Bruins, think that, he's not going to, even hit 240, 250. I probably think he's going to hit below the Mendoza line. But again, I think, maybe give him a few chances here and there and see what he can do. Again, one game you can't go based off of because it's a very small sample size. But again, I think that's someone who's probably get more DH spots further in the season. I also wonder, maybe there's going to be some games where, the Bruins kind of did with Pod Hall and Jack McCarthy a couple years back, kind of rotate them out in and out of the catcher and DH spots, give one guy some time to catch, give one guy time in the DH spot one game to get him some time off his feet and vice versa. So, we'll see kind of what happens with that. Also, we mentioned Jack Cavalerio in that Robinson game. He was really good through a good seventh inning. Again, great in relief, and we're going to bring him up as we transition into our previews of a week. So again, the Bruins already facing a big arch nemesis of theirs in West Springfield tomorrow. Coach Olms and his Spartans come to town for a Bruins home opener. Very tough team over there. Very tough pitching staff. Will probably be the future Gamecock South Carolina commit Aaron Dirks on a mound, or first team all-region pitcher from last year, and D2 Shepherd commit Milo Thompson. Probably want to be those two guys going. We've seen Dirks pitch against the Bruins. He's shown to be really good against them. One thing about the Spartans lineup is keep in mind they have a lot of guys who can hit for a ton of power. I mean, everywhere you look, they have guys who can really smack the ball and launch it a long way. Starting off with Dirks can do that. Of course, Liberty D1 commit Caleb Williams. Patrick Cito, who's new to that outfield this year, can do that. Thomas Antonio has some good power over there. Zach Zobko at catcher. Zobko and Cito actually already have a homer this season. Caleb Williams had a 3 home run game in a 2017 win over Oakton. One of them most thrilling games you will see out of any level last week. So he's already looking like he's in midseason form. But again, a lot of hard outs in that Bruins line or in that Spartans lineup, and a lot of guys that can really launch a ball a very long way and really smack it hard and make you really pay for your mistakes on pitches. So my guess, for Bruins, if you're going to go someone tomorrow, you'd probably expect it to be Cavalerio. Of course, we talk about him already doing well for his first week. We have no runs allowed in 5 innings, 9 strikeouts. Now, he's not the most dominating guy. He doesn't have like 90 miles an hour on a fastball, and all these power pitches. He's not really a guy who has a bunch of velocity. Being 5'9", he probably wouldn't really have that. But he does have some good control of his own. And that 1-out pitch is really going to help you get strikeouts, even if he's not, going to really dominate you velocity. Is that wicked? I believe it's that curveball that he has that gets so much spin on it. Uses it really well, get a lot of whiffs, swings, and misses. It is elite at doing so. As we've seen in his first 2 games this season, he's been busy, so he'll probably be getting his first ever varsity start tomorrow. That curveball is probably going to play big, especially against a lot of the Spartans power hitters that are probably really going to be really more aggressive in trying to get, hitting strikes hard, as former Yankee coach Dylan Lawson used to say. That it's a big thing there if they try to aim for a lot of power and home runs in the big leagues. And so, maybe Spartans go by something like that with all those power hitters that they have, hard velo guys off of bat. That curveball will definitely get them with those more home run hitters that tend to have more holes in their swing and out, won't really try to protect as much, won't really try to be adept at more working long at bats, be more aggressive and really trying to drive the ball and try to take bigger aggressive swings. Probably be more adept to chasing out of his zone. So that's where that curveball is really going to come key into playing, trying to get guys like Caleb Williams, Patrick Cito, Zachary Zobko out, Thomas Antonio mentioned as well. So that's what I'm looking at for Bruins tomorrow. But this is a really big game. Bruins are going up against a very tough West Springfield team with more experience, especially coming from that pitching staff. They got some experience in the lineup too. Again, we talked about this Bruins team this year, not as much as experience. There's a lot of newcomers this year, especially in the pitching staff. Padgett, Cavalerio. New big roles, especially the top ends of the pitching staff. Offensively, a few new guys, with Dom Quadros, who's been off to a good start. Gibson's gotten a few starts last year, but in full-time starting roles. Chambers, a freshman catcher. Matthew Holcomb out in right field. a CJ Prentice, Henry Mond. There's going to be some, a lot of new guys again for Bruins this year in those places. And so, this is a Bruins team, that has a lot of players who are, inexperienced in some places. And that, it'll be interesting to see how well they step up and how well they step up to this challenge of facing this really, really good West Springfield team coming up tomorrow. But I mean, if they could win, be a big confidence booster for them, give you a lot of momentum going into these coming games. I mean, I think, but if they lose, a good thing is that they do, face West Springfield pretty early this year. Is only their third game in. And so if they do lose in some way tomorrow, whether it's a big or a close loss, there'll be a lot to take away. They'll find a lot more about themselves, as they kind of have a new identity this year with all those new players, as I was talking about. And they'll kind of be able to kind of go over a lot of those things that went wrong, that led them to a loss, in retrospect. If they do lose tomorrow, they'll still have a lot of time to go over it being early in the season, and they'll still be able to prepare well for the next time to face West Springfield and some other really tough teams coming up. Bruins face McLean. The defending 6A champs coming up. They'll face West Springfield again. We'll face Alexandria, a really good Alexandria City team 2 times. I believe the next time is next week at home. So we'll have that going for them as well. So a few very tough matchups going on there. St. Albans as well. PBR, VADC Power 25 team, and then a Westfield team that I think will be much improved this year. So a lot of that coming up. But again, it'll be very interesting to see how the Bruins do this week. Last game, of course, is Friday at Woodson. Woodson arguably the worst team in the district that year. Again, Bruins should be able to win that game. It'll be interesting to see if they go with Bo Padgett pitching that day or someone else. Maybe see Leo Delomo pitch once again. But yeah, so Braddock, with the wins that they've already had, first couple wins facing Bear, South County, Robinson team should be able to win against a very bad Woodson team on Friday. So, at least expect the Bruins to come away with 1 win this week at bare minimum if they can't win versus West Springfield tomorrow. All right, so we're 23 minutes in now, so we're going to hop on over to the softball side. Very interesting week for softball, playing 3 games. Usually they do this for the first 2 weeks where they play 1 game. They usually have a couple out district matchups, once in those first 2 weeks apiece. Last week it was Concord representative in Oakton, and I also played games versus South County and Robinson, who's been our trouble last few years, South County as well. So I kind of get into that first, kind of start off right with that South County game that they played down in Wharton. So I was watching a lot of that game. 6-1 win. Bruins, a lot of places got kind of lucky. South County was not the best on defense. Struggled more defensively, or probably going to be worse defensively than they were the last few years. Not as much top-heavy talent on that team. The defense, again, over there is probably trying to adjust well as they got a lot of new starters over there. 5 errors. If they committed, it's allowed the Bruins to score some runs. Maddie Grice for South County only allowed 3 runs, surprising a little bit considering how much she struggled a lot of times last year. But again, only 3 earned, so not terrible for her. Of course, got a shout out Mackenzie Verdejo, of course, the Bruins ace, who pitched well that day, 7 innings, 10 strikeouts. Gave up a home run, Julia Niner in the 7th, but Braddock was still able to pull away. They were already up 6-0 at that point when the home run was hit. So, so at that point, it didn't really matter. Lake Braddock's solid opening day win. Took advantage of South County's mistakes on defense. A few other runs of their own there. Did really well. And then we stepped to that Oakton game. The Oakton game, of course, was a 5-2 loss, not what you want to see from our Bruins. And we actually didn't have Rodeo pitching that day. We actually had one of the forward freshmen, Sarah Allen, on a mound for Bruins. She actually did pretty well through, I believe, 5 innings of work. Only gave up 3 earned runs. Of course, she kept the Bruins in the game. Very good for her first varsity start. Did give up a 2-run home run, I believe, in the bottom of 5th inning. That made a 3-1 Oakton lead. But Bruins were kind of sloppy on offense that game, not working the grace at bats. I think they were being a bit too aggressive and, needed to work the count better that game. They weren't really making Oakton pitcher Alexander Rose work, I think, as much as they wanted to. I think, again, just trying to work the kinks out for a few of the new hitters. But again, very good pitching performance by Sarah Allen over there. 5-2 loss. kind of get to see some of the depth that's behind Verdejo this year in the pitching. Lauren Allen also came in as well. I'm not sure if Sarah and Lauren are ready. That's something I have to check up on. I will let you guys know. And then Friday, of course, big game for rival Robinson, regional championship rematch of last year. The Bruins won 10-0 last year in Mercy Grove. Well, they won this one by even more. 15-0 at Robinson. They crushed Amanda Habstritt, 15 runs. Surprisingly, didn't see Aaliyah Berge or Grace Gilbert pitch. I know Grace Gilbert isn't pitching as much as she did the first 2 years of her high school career. Habstritt has kind of been more so their ace this year, first couple of games. Berge might have been out for an injury. I know she wasn't hitting, so I'm guessing that was the case. Sorry for your desk shake right there. Guys, please apologize. But, the Bruins went out and really crushed the ball there. Again, you have Verdejo. Talk about, another good pitch performance back on the mound. Mercy Ruin. 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 hit, 1 walk. No runs given up. So she's already mid-season pitching form. 2-time All-State pitcher. 2-time All-Met pitcher already coming back, being one of the best pitchers in the state. And, of course, we got obviously a focal point everyone has been wanting to talk about is her offense. Man, I told you guys she was going to be really good offensively this year. And, man, she has been off to a hot offensive start. 2 home runs versus Robinson. Crushed 2 balls to left field off Habstritt. She's been arguably the best hitter for Bruins first 3 games this season. A lot of RBIs, a lot of long hits. And, again, we mentioned, how, her offense struggles. She's always been consistent here. Maybe she's, she's always had a lot of power. Just hasn't been consistent with the first 2 years. It was more consistent with the down stretch last year. But I think really you're seeing now how she's, been able to really flatten out her swing more, get to a point where she can get a good amount of contact on the ball to make contact consistently. And I see the results really paying off, and she's now, kind of seeing that the home runs, will be hinged just focus on making, good contact more than just trying to swing for fences maybe. I know in travel ball this past offseason, I was watching some of her highlights from travel ball in the offseason today when I was doing research for Wednesday. And, I actually saw she hit quite a few home runs during the summer. And so, she has a lot of potential offensively. Definitely will be one of the premier power threats for Bruins this year, as we've seen. Definitely will be one of their best hitters, in my opinion. She has a lot to offer, especially, so she could probably become one of the better two-way threats in the state. And, like I said, with this offense performance, continuing she's been pitching, probably a good candidate for not just district and regional player of the year again. Now, she only earned those 2 awards last year. That's been just being on the pitching side, just being so dominant, allowing less than half a run for ERA. But this year, she really takes off on offense, and you're probably looking at maybe this year, next year being a 6A player of the year, possibly maybe even Gatorade Virginia player of the year at some point. Maybe come 2026. Or who knows, maybe even this year she really goes off offensively, but who knows? A lot of competition, but again, it'll be interesting to watch her. Again, a few of the a couple other things for Bruins to go over real quick before we kind of preview this week's softball games for Lake Braddock. With the lineup, of course, we kind of know more about who's starting. I mentioned Sarah Allen. She's now looks like Bruins starting left fielder. Showed some good contact for the first few games in terms of that. Hopefully she continues that up. You'll see Rada Samuel moving over from left to center field from Robert Mavage graduating, going to Virginia Tech. Bruins like her out there in center field, 4-year starter, 3-time second-team all-district player, Emori D. Free commit. She's really good out there with her speed and center field, good range, can cover the ball well. Good fit over there. And you have Eva Dubray, one of the other freshmen on the team, at third base, full-time starter. Another position where Bruins would like to get a lot of offense from this year's, did not last year. They mostly had Caitlin Ritchie, who I believe was flexed quite a few times over there, getting some at-bats. I know they had a couple other stars, Lauren Allen as well, who's back in the team this year, as we've mentioned. She's shown some good on-base prowess, maybe and some good discipline. 10 walks and 33 plate appearances last year, so maybe she can definitely step up offensively. Maybe this year, I know she started versus Robinson the other day, so see more of that coming up this week. And so Dubray, has shown some good signs of hitting. Bruins are looking for her to be consistent. They can, especially bottom of the lineup, 6'7", Sarah Allen and where Dubray are hitting respectively. You like to see more bottom line production, which the Bruins struggled with last year again. Talk about other hitters, kind of around there. Caitlin Blad at second base. She's been off to a good start, showing more on base prowess this year, working better at bats after a struggle last year. I think she only had about 20 or 30 plate appearances, but she did struggle. Only freshman that made the Bruins varsity team last year. Now she's a sophomore. I expect her to take a big step up. Could definitely be a good on-base order, kind of secondary leadoff hitter for Bombo lineup set up for Rod Samuel, Mackenzie Verdejo, Addison Ford, some of the Haley Hackbar, some of those other top good hitters, Bruins part of the lineup in the top half. And Vlad, I think something also to watch out for is how well her opposite field power develops. She has shown some bit of extra base, pop you away for only being 5'1". Very, very good in that. Showing some promise. Will be interesting to watch her on that side as well. Again, it does seem like Addison Ford is kind of moving down from a leadoff spot where she's been the first 2 years down to kind of be a free four, kind of towards the middle of the order, free spot of the lineup. I know she was hitting second versus Robinson on Friday. I like her more in a free spot and have Verdejo or maybe Haley Hackbar at that 2 spot just to kind of split up lefties and righties, just to have some, more creativity at the top of the lineup to kind of throw opposing pitchers off so they can change their approach like that against those lefties and righties. But I think they want more. I think with Mackenzie, maybe the way she was hitting, they want to maybe move Ford down, who was off to a bit of a slower start from Verdejo was. So there was that. But, again, she'll probably get a lot more chance where she's hitting in the free hole this season. So some interesting things on the softball side too. And of course, we look into this week now. So tomorrow, just like in baseball, big matchup in softball. West Springfield, saying this before, I'll say it again. West Springfield probably the biggest competitor to Lake Braddock. Probably them and the Bruins in states this year. They have, a lot of experience again coming back. I mentioned a lot of names stacked infield. Meredith Mossford at first, Alexa Harvey at second, Becky Stewart shortstop. With Kate Middendorf maybe playing third base. Elena Promozic, the Youngstown State committee, is D1, DPing. Natalie Coughlin, former all-region catcher, is back. Mia Lee in the outfield. Layla Mutin, who's shown some good power in the outfield. And they have, Andrea Yagoy, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, but really good freshman who pitched a, I think, 2-run, 14 strikeout game against West Potomac. And she's shown me she could be a Mackenzie-like pitcher. She could probably be the next great dominant pitcher for Coach Benton Spartans over there off of Rolling Road. And, so that's going to be intriguing. I know she pitched against West Potomac. She didn't pitch against Hayfield and Fairfax. It was both Elena Promozic in both games pitching, and Penelope Walls as well pitched versus Hayfield as well, who the Bruins will face on Wednesday. We kind of get into that matchup as well. Again, Verdejo versus the freshman Yagoy. So that'll be a very interesting matchup to watch. Definitely be a very tough game for Bruins, especially facing that lineup. But Mackenzie's faced, South County lineups in the past with multiple D1 commits. She's, also some other very tough lineups as well. So very sure for Mackenzie, she'll probably still do pretty well, handling better lineups in the past. But again, very good experienced Spartans team, some good experience all around. So Bruins think key that game, again. I think the key for most time, Mackenzie, is going to do well. The key is they have to hit. Because the Bruins, let's be honest, at times this Bruins team has trouble stringing together hits and runs. And so, the Bruins were kind of talking about this on the 6-4 Free podcast. Finally got released today. Go make sure to check it out on their YouTube channel. And Lake Braddock was on there for about 20 minutes for high school softball media day. And, of course, with Nora Abramovich graduating, going to Virginia Tech now, I know one of the things that they were really talking about was how their offensive approach was changing a bit, and how maybe they were also trying to. I've also talked to some of the players themselves in interviews, and they've been saying, how maybe they've, we're probably going to try string together some more hits this year, making the pitchers work more. Again, they didn't really have that approach down as much versus Oakton, much better versus Robinson. Of course, I think they did a better job with Maddie Grice over at Staff County on opening day too. They're going to have to really do that with Yagoy, especially, it's the first time they're facing her ever. New pitcher, you definitely don't want to get thrown off by her, because if, you don't work your at-bats against her, you don't really figure out, because she will definitely beat you. She's already shown, she's hasn't made big airwaves yet, but she will coming up. She's, potentially she could be just as good as Mackenzie sometime. We'll see. But she definitely is someone for the Spartans who has a lot of good pitching potential, as we saw. Again, Bruins at times, especially offensively, with how good Bruins have been, especially many years past, has always taken a long time to really get going against certain pitchers. In certain games you just can't make excuses. Oh, we just got beat. The pitcher is too good. If you're here to compete, you're here to compete. You really have to win. Bruins are good enough to win. I think tomorrow they could still come off and win. But again, Mackenzie's going to do her job. She'll probably only allow a couple. Most will probably only allow a few runs. So how she does it most of the time. Bruins offense just has to hit. Just simply comes down to that. So it'll be interesting what we see with the offense tomorrow. Wednesday with Hayfield. A pretty interesting story for Hayfield. Another under new head coach Sander, and for being national district pretender most years. As most national district teams are actually kind of a cup 3-0. And it's actually one of the threes against national district teams, being a 21-2 win over Justice on Friday. Beat both Marshall and West Springfield, as we mentioned. Now, I know a Marshall game, Marshall committed 8 errors, 11-10 wins, so Marshall probably had not had such bad defense. Hayfield would have lost that game. Now, the Marshall pitchers team their scores the max, if they actually, both of them pitched decently well in their outings. And I know Elena Promosa and Penelope Wall struggled versus Hayfield. I think 10 runs that they gave up that were earned. And Hayfield actually, that was kind of an impressive shootout win, 11-7 over the Spartans. Maybe Hayfield maybe got something a little going for him this year. Now, for competition in National District, I don't think it's going to be that good. So I think, still Patriot having slightly better, or not slightly, just overall still having a lot better competition. Patriot District will still have the edge when it comes to the regional tournament this year. And again, another thing, I wonder if Mackenzie will pitch on Wednesday, because usually, unless it's regional or states, you don't really see Mackenzie pitching versus these out-of-district teams. Now, again, I think the reason they do that is because, Mackenzie is only pitching 2 games a week on average, which is what most teams usually play in baseball and softball. Softball more specifically is what we're talking about here. And I think, they don't want to get her out of shape, and out of her routine and risk getting her hurt, because I think, that's the most important pitch, your most important player to the team, as we talked about, is going to be your pitcher. Your pitcher is probably going to be what wins you your most games. So we probably don't want her getting hurt. Again, those out-of-district games don't really matter as much, in terms of, regional tournament. They don't matter as in, really in states. If it's for football, sure, with PowerPoints and all that, but really, there isn't really as much of a PowerPoint system here, across the other sports like baseball and softball, for example. And so, just whoever, more so it's important about winning the region if you're coming to states, and then you could, just face a runner-up, whoever. It's not going to be about winning a region. Runner-ups make it 2 from all the different regions. It's just not in football where it's only the regional winners make it. So, you have that. So it's not nearly as hard to have success, in other sports, compared to football, which is a special situation of its own over there in that sport. But it is going to be interesting if she does pitch, because the thing with Hayfield, they actually are in the same region as Lake Braddock, being in Occoquan. That game will matter in terms of seeding when it comes to the regional tournament. So Braddock can beat Hayfield. And again, I think it'd make it a little contentious to see who wins. If Mackenzie is not pitching. I'll probably see, just because of that, I think there's an argument we could say there Mackenzie should be pitching on Wednesday. And then maybe say Sarah Allen or, the Allens or Caitlin Vlad, who can pitch too. Some whatever pitching depth, maybe save them for Friday at Woodson. If you don't want them to pitch Mackenzie 3 times in a week, you don't have to. So, they could also do that as well, if Woodson probably not being, in terms of if you're going to use, your depth, Woodson is probably the one who's probably going to hurt you the least amount, because they probably have a worse offense out of all 4 teams. And, you got to give it to Hayfield. Hayfield does have some good hitters out there in Southern Alexandria. So there is that too, excuse me. But again, West Springfield, Mackenzie will probably be pitching tomorrow. But again, I think that'll be a bit interesting to see. And we even see, even with state contending teams outside of the region, such as Battlefield, Bruins went down at Haymarket last year. Talia Vera Jimenez pitched that game. Now, she pitched well 6 shutout innings against a team that went to the state finals. But again, Mackenzie Verdejo did not pitch that game. I think she maybe should have pitched that game, because Battlefield was a team, again, made the state finals. I believe they won, or they were Region 6B runners to a state champions Osborne Park in Class 6. But, again, I think it would be great if you get Mackenzie even more of that experience, facing a team as good as Battlefield as being a perennial power. And then I also have a Langley, another interesting, team that, we'll see if she pitches, will be against a very, very good Langley team, as one of probably the best in Northern Virginia this year, led by the great two-way star Nora Jacks over there. She's just a sophomore. She's amazing at what she does. And so, it'll be interesting to see if, Verdejo maybe gets a pitching appearance against the Saxons in late April, over on April 28th. So that'll be something interesting, again, trying to build her up for state tournament, trying to get her as much tough experience as she can face. I think that, again, really helps out, still with the teams facing. Again, there's probably, unless you have again, it's probably going to a lot of managing you have to do, kind of trying to figure out, I think it should be more based on, strength of teams you face in terms of if you're going to have them rest one day, because, you're going to pitch 2 days in a week, as they regularly do most of the time. If you're going to have 3 games in a week, you should probably save, your best pitcher, in softball for the 2 hardest games. And then, the other easier game, your other pitchers that you have in your depth chart, you should probably save for the weaker game, if you guys know what I'm saying. You have that. And then, I think if Mackenzie does pitch Wednesday, it'll be much easier for the Bruins. I think they will win. Again, if they go with the depth, probably more contentious. Friday, Woodson, Mackenzie, or the depth, regardless, should probably win that. Woodson's offense, again, not really good, not good pitching. Overall, just a very weak team over there in towards Central Fairfax. So they should have a lot going for them in that one. So, of course, make sure you guys tune in to the next episode. You guys are tuning in to this episode today of the Adam Hazara Show. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification button, share this video with a friend. Thank you guys so much, and see you next time.